We're the Armed Attorneys. Today we're going to talk about who is qualified to carry a handgun under Texas constitutional carry, also known as the Firearm Carry Act of 2021.
So let's start off with the qualifications. One of the most important being 21 years of age or older. So for our 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, you would not be qualified to carry generally out in public under Texas constitutional carry. You may be able to carry inside your vehicle so long as you're otherwise qualified, but first things first, you gotta be 21 years of age or older. The next important qualification is you can't be prohibited under state law. Do you want to talk about what those disqualifications are?
Yeah, so there's a couple. They're pretty easy to remember. You're going to know if one of these applies to you. You can't have a domestic violence conviction for assault causing bodily injury. You can't be under an active protective order. And this is unfortunate because really, not only does it suspend your right to constitutional carry, it suspends your right to possess firearms, period, while you're under this active order. And unfortunately, that active order is sitting there before you're even convicted of the offense. So if you've just been accused of a family violence offense, you're generally going to have one of these orders issued against you. Your firearm rights are effectively gone while that order is in place.
And the third one is not being a convicted felon. And so those are someone who's been convicted of a crime where the possible punishment imposed is greater than a year confinement. And so you find this list of places in Texas Penal Code 4604. That's where our prohibited people are. There's one more there, that's criminal street gangs. That doesn't relate to constitutional carry, but they're in that list as well. But those other three prohibitions that Emily and I talked about, you'll find those in 4604. Now, it's important to note there's another list of prohibitions, just as a practical matter, that would disqualify you from possessing firearms or ammunition. Those are the prohibitions under federal law. 18 U.s.c. 922 subsection G. So those are the people, if you couldn't go purchase a gun under federal law, as a practical matter, you're not going to be able to engage in constitutional carry. It's important to note that, even though it's not in the statute.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Richard, when you actually pull the Firearm Carry Act of 2021, it's in the preamble. They talk about this is for people who are legally allowed to own and possess firearms under federal law, and yet it doesn't actually appear in the text of the statute of the law as passed.
Yes, and then there's kind of a hiccup with vehicles where that prohibition does extend. But when we saw this law come into being, it was really about conforming handgun carry to the way long guns were treated, and so that's why we see that kind of disparity. The other thing that we get a question about all the time is, do I have to be a resident of the state of Texas in order to constitutionally carry? And the answer is no. There's no residency requirement. There's only a handful of states that require you to be a resident. Wyoming, North Dakota, just a few examples, but that's not the requirement here in Texas. Now, the one thing, if you're 21 years of age or older, have zero criminal history, and you're not prohibited under federal law, it's really easy to say, yes, you're likely going to qualify for constitutional carry. Now, if you have some criminal history, that's when it becomes a little bit dicey, especially when it comes to misdemeanors. Can you talk about some of those disqualifying misdemeanors?
Yeah, and we've been calling this the carve out because essentially you've got this 5-year almost cooling off period if you've been convicted of certain misdemeanors, and it's 5 misdemeanors. It's assault causes bodily injury, such a Class A assault. We've got deadly conduct. We've got terroristic threat, which sounds like something a lot worse than it is. Really, it's just threatening someone, placing them in fear of bodily injury, serious bodily injury. I'm not going to go through the statutory qualifications now, but it's really just a threat to cause someone harm. And then we've got 2 types of disorderly conduct, discharge of a firearm, and disorderly conduct, display of a firearm. And if you have one of those misdemeanor convictions in the last 5 years, you are not eligible to constitutional carry until that 5 years is run.
And there's a word I want us to all hone in on that Emily said, convictions. A conviction. So that means you've been finally adjudicated as guilty. And so what does that mean? If you were placed on a deferred for one of those crimes, you'd be allowed to carry. That's not a conviction. So if you've been finally convicted, you had a sentence imposed on you, that's what we're looking at when we talk about convictions. So 21 years of age or older, not prohibited under state or federal law, not a part of one of those big 5 carve-outs. And remember, you don't have to be a resident of the state of Texas to engage in constitutional carry.
Yeah. Well, thanks for watching, y'all. If you enjoyed this content, hit the like button, consider subscribing, and join the fight against the anti-gun algorithm by sharing this video.
And as always, we appreciate y'all's questions and discussion in the comments section below. Until next time, we are the Armed Attorneys.